Hello again, people. I've had lots of good ideas in the morning, as I normally do, and sometimes they fade away if I don't write them down and put them on video pretty quick. I've not written any of them down, but I think I've got enough in my mind to give you some idea of where I've been at in my thoughts. This who you really are thing, this thing that they're trying to do to bring in other people, more like outsiders, and give them some sense of being buoyed up by who they really are, is what, obviously what the Nazis did with identity. You have to make an account of yourself somehow in life, and we can't do that by looking and seeing as we used to, as a judge of character, because you can't stereotype in that way anymore. And unfortunately, a lot of the traditional types who don't have the certification of the life span on the conveyor belt are in deep water there, especially people who can't use an identity group to get a leg up. And they will challenge, as I've experienced, your sense of who you really are. And you can be out on a limb because you can say, look, I'm just this person, you can see who I am, and they find it intimidating. Being out in the wild, away from, the conveyor belt, gives you more of a connection to yourself and God if you're lost as a child. Yet people tend to fear perhaps those who don't have their parents' label still on them, or they pretend not to, like overgrown kids if they get into power, people who've still got their parents' label on them. So they can't understand how you go around not needing it with all your sort of integral sort of sense of self. So really, they're frightened of it. They'll call you a conspiracy theorist if you have your own ideas that don't come from a background. In fact, it's something that they can use in psychiatry. If you have ideas that don't come from your, say, parents or religious background, that's a tick box for psychosis, because you're not allowed this independent thing that they fear that Jesus had, like this power they can't define, this power they can't control. So the internal essence of who you are, the integrity, is something that you can find without your parents' label. I found some of the very strongest, truest, most trustworthy characters have been the ones who've not had that and been out in the world and tested their salt, tested their grit. That would sometimes say people who've been damaged, be afraid of people who are damaged, they know they can survive. And there is that aspect too, that you have a sense that you're projecting into the world of something that's not tick box enough for our current state. And, when we get together in our groups, they'll try and, the people within power who've got a very flimsy or different sense of self that relies on shields and smoke and mirrors will say that you're on a moral crusade or a moral panic, which they try and control with the press. That's why they didn't let the child abuse report out, and they didn't do anything in Rotherham as they should. The people in control have no real connection to that grit, you see. They're like little pandered, hot-housed, a lot of them are, mummies and daddies' boys who've been to school, been to university, and it's all about having your papers. And if you have something other to give them that's not just your papers, they don't believe anything is integral. They don't want to believe anything is integral that can come from, just inert, innate qualities, be that either from God or inborn. We've gone completely against this nature thing now. We just completely believe in their nurture system, the tick box, and it's all very much for these people about having the right papers. Because as it says, I'll go to the religious aspect now. In the last days, those who had not received a kingdom before will have an hour to rule with the beast. So like reformed smokers in a way, those who'd not had something, outsiders if you like, brought in from different types of environments, different types of alternative things that they love to use, will have much more of a sense of have your papers than those who are just using their intrinsic qualities, the ones that frighten them. So here we are. They'll see pitchforks the moment they sense one of these people. And I see, saints. People who are saints are people... I used to tell my friend Rupert, who was a survivor, who's a relative of Lawrence Fox. In fact, once one of the Fox family went to Rupert's christening, he was a survivor who got treated very badly by the system, and they created a reputation around him because he had this sense of self and purpose that was in defiance against his abuse and all the wrongs he'd achieved, been not achieved, well, yeah, achieved in a way, because what I said to him, I hope he heard me, and he's watching over me now, because he never lived to see the day when us survivors had our voice, because he used to say nobody's interested when I told him about my past. I said to him, you're being made an example of, and that's what being a saint is. It's like being a saint. You're being made an example of somebody fashioned differently, somebody who is more themselves for a reason, to show the world, to bring that light. So we have that. Those who had not received a kingdom had 1 hour to rule with the beast, and they're doing it very officiously now, having all the right paperwork. The woman in the wilderness was clothed in the sun, clothed in light. And this is our light that we must keep using, because we are the ones being persecuted here, as the woman clothed in the sun, Revelations 12:17. This is very politically unsuitable for these people who would say that was a moral crusade. They would say that that was something, as I explained, to be fearful of, because the paperwork isn't there of this latest regime to tick box who you are and your identity. And this is why they're pushed into the wilderness in this time and persecuted. The seed, it says, the remaining seed. So the Christian persecution is the real one in these days, but they'll do everything to tell you that it's not, because these people are tick boxing, have 1 hour to rule with the beast who had not received a kingdom before, it says in the book of Revelations, and they have one purpose, one common purpose. You just need to add a word. It says one purpose to give their power and authority to the beast, one common purpose. And it's a red beast. It's communism. It's global communism. All the pointers that are there. So there you go. We are the real persecuted. I always try and tell people to feel some sense of, not pride that we scare them, not pride that, we are in that box, but just be aware and be thankful. Even though we have nothing, and I mean pretty much nothing, in this system who can defend people like us, and to even do so you'll be attacked. To even try to do so as a group, you'll be said it's a moral crusade by people who fear these things because they've got to their positions relying on other things, and they have disallowed those invisible qualities, sometimes inborn, sometimes gained from God, through being outside of the nepotistic little family push that they rely on, and the cover that they rely on. So let that light shine. Don't be afraid to be singled out, because we don't want to live in that kind of regime where these people hold the raison d'etre, and we want to be able to, if possible, survive it. If not, look biblically to the way that our spiritual survival is more important. Okay, I'm going to leave it there for now and get a cup of tea. If you've got any questions, or if I can think of anything else to say, I'll be back in about 5 or 10 minutes. But I don't want to just waffle on. So thanks for listening. I'll do this again more regularly if I can, because I have more peace to do so. I've got a bit of a croaky throat. I'm just hoping it's not corona, as I said, because my son's off school now. I've been taking lots of vitamin D and trying to, and not because I'm afraid of it, because I just don't want to get the flu. Even if I just don't. So as I'm not one of these people who will go on marches, and I do believe that we must stand up to the state, and that there will come a point where we have to, but I don't believe that's necessarily the right way right now, not for me anyway. But I'm with you all the way, and we must find a way of resisting, and read the prophecies. They'll give you so much understanding about the persecution in these times, and who and what it is that they hate. And it says, the beast that I just described, who had 1 hour to rule, because the outsider groups, basically, it fits so perfectly into cultural Marxism. It's just glaringly obvious. They'll have 1 hour to rule with the beast, and the beast is covered in blasphemous names. You can imagine what they are. Perhaps every letter here and there that they want to add, apart from us, of course. So this persecution is by exemption, in a way, by not being part of the protected group anymore, and being a part of a more quiet, recessive thing that they know that they could actually dominate and control and wipe away, because it's so much more gentle and weak. And we don't have the same pushes that they do. Often a lot of us have been outcast, a lot of us have something innate, and we have something that can't be ticked into their more and more controlled regime. So but the beast eventually brings down Babylon, which I call the Babylon elite, the global elite, sitting as queen. We will never know mourning. And there are lots of people with a conservative mindset that still want to be there, and that, that's up to them. But there is a divide now between those people and the beast, who are full of angst and anger towards this thing. And try and separate, I put in my book, from being in either of those camps completely, because we don't want our statues pulled down by the beast, who will leave us naked, leave the culture naked, which is pretty much what Juncker used to say about us coming out of the European Union. And it says in the Bible, come out of Babylon. And we can't, can we? We just can't. It's very difficult. And of course, there's all this angst from the beast, the pushing the rights, the Black Lives Matter, the protests in London. How do we get rid of this parasite, it's very difficult. We're just going to have to hope that it works its way and that enough of us can spread the knowledge. Some of the things, please share what I'm saying. Look it up in Revelations, the book of Revelations, the payback of Babylon. Now, this can only be the payback of for colonialism, because it's the empire, was such a great empire. Pay her back, burn her, leave her naked, for what she's taken, corrupted the earth. And there are still some in the hierarchy say, here we sit as queen. Well, we're not saying that, but don't necessarily join the beast who wants to bring it down with angst. There is a way, there's a third way, okay? And I am just feeling a way to try and find that now. And I'm asking you also to help me and do the research with me. So as I said, I'm going to go for that tea now, but I've given you some hints. Revelations 12:17, the woman clothed in the sun, wings of an eagle, in the wilderness. God loved the woman, prepared a place in the wilderness for her. The dragon tried to devour the child before it was born. And this is very important because it fits into the transing agenda of everything that's going on in Babylon. So it's almost, yeah, it's almost like the Weimar thing, isn't it, in Babylon? I mean, I think people were talking about it even back then, you know, that that now this push of a different way, the city way, is trying to grab everything now, because it's like a nucleus. Cities always are. So the city mentality, the less rooted mentality, is getting. So the woman clothed in the sun is persecuted, and so are her seed, and the dragon stands in front of her to devour the child before it's born, and all the floods and everything. But I mean, I'm not giving you a direct interpretation. I'm just telling you to look, because I think the answers are pretty self-explanatory, and we'll come to pretty similar conclusions once we read it for ourselves. I'm not doing that for you. Okay, and the payback of Babylon for her previous empire, mother of all perverts. And it mentions Gog and Magog, which are very symbolic to Britain, and also the city of London. Ancient protectors, you can look this up. And it was also the Gog-Magog war with Bush, as he told Chirac, which is an end times war. That's what they're aiming for. Within the powers that be, the big reset, even, you know, when it talks about those who destroy the earth will now be destroyed, they're using all the gimmicks of these things, because, you know, if you put it into action, mirror the biblical reenaction, it makes it a self-fulfilling prophecy. But what it is actually a real prophecy, but we have to be aware of when it's being faked, like, say, by Greta and the environmentalists who want to monopolise and destroy the earth and treat us like cattle, and when it's real, and when we've really got, you know, this parasite off us, you know. And we've got to be very careful with our targeting, that we don't get put into camps and categories that will silence us. I mean, we all tread on very deep, on very thin ice when we do this. Bye for now.